Well, welcome back, guys. It's been a few weeks since I uploaded one of these. Main reason is I just haven't been on a fishing match. It's been my daughter's birthday, it was my birthday. We've had loads of activities surrounding those two events, so I've just not actually been fishing. So, did get out this weekend though, so I thought I'd talk you through that. So, as with my previous two matches, I've been back to Shearsby Valley this week. Now, it's sort of been my summer campaign, let's be honest. There's a final in 2 weeks' time on the 26th of September that I'd really like to win. So after qualifying, I've been ticking over, going every other week or so and just trying to keep in tune with the venue. Now, last week the temperatures really dropped, and which obviously my whole approach has been based around pace fishing, which with the colder nights I felt like maybe a bit of an issue. I felt like the fish, I have won a match as late as this on pace. This time last year I won one. But I felt like it was starting, you could see the weights were getting lower. 60 pounders, won a few matches, 70 pound, which is unusual for there, that, you know, there's a lot of fish to be caught. And it's typical of a lot of venues at the moment. The fishing has just got a bit harder. For that reason, I didn't really fancy pace at all. So I went with a different plan this week. I wanted to fish maggots short. I'd still fish pace in the edge because I do think it's the best way. But I wanted to really try and catch on maggots because I think at the end of the month, when the final is here, that'll be the best method. I drew peg 40 on Tornado Lake, which for anyone who knows the venue, that is rubbish. And I don't mean to just say that. It is rubbish. It's a corner peg, really at the top end of the venue, never catches any wind. And as you know, corner pegs need wind to produce. And this peg, it's like tucked in behind a hedge, just never gets the wind. And it's shallow too. Nevertheless, it's a peg, funny enough, I've always actually fancied drawing. Not that I fancied winning the match from it, I just wanted to fish it. It's a lovely corner, it's got some nice features. I just wanted to see what it was like. But obviously being in a corner again for the second match running, it gave me a few different options than the open water swims. So my plan was maggots short at about 5 or 6 metres, where I'd sort of loose feed maggots over the top. They have been catching on maggots shallow on some pegs, so I had rigs set up for that. I had bottom rigs as well, a 4x12 and a 4x14 F1 maggot, one with a bulk and 2 droppers, one with strung out number 10s. My aim being it might be that I'd catch F1s on the drop, but sometimes I know when the fishing's good, a bulk and 2 droppers can be best. So I set up both, a couple of shallow rigs with F1 shallow floats. And then up the bank, I thought, could fish maggots and ground bait up there, but my aim was really to fish maggots again, through a medium cad pot. I know at this time of year, potting large quantities live maggots in can be really good for F1s, and from what I've been told, it was an F1 sort of peg. So I did that at 13 metres up the bank, it was about 2 foot deep. And then finally I fished down the edge to my left, and it was shallow for a long way out. I don't like pegs like that, if I'm honest. If the water level was back up to normal, it would have been a lovely depth, but it was about 12 inches and it was a bit of a beach one. It was like one of those that, Jamie Hughes talks about these all the time at Larford, like the beach pegs where the fish can come up in the same depth of water to get to your bait from a few metres out. And I always think they're tricky to catch on pegs like that. They blow the bait everywhere, and I think that's what happens, and the bait's scattered all over the peg and you struggle to catch them. But anyway, I thought I'd fish ground bait and pace down there, and that was it really. 3 spots. Match kicked off, and I fully expected to catch a little F1 every chuck in on maggots to start with, until I probably caught them all, to be honest. And it just didn't happen. I caught 3 or 4 quickly, and then you could just tell there wasn't many there. John Shellard opposite me on peg 41, he was directly opposite me, hadn't had a bite at this point. I think he was fishing pellets. Hadn't had a bite at this point, and we were both just looking for snookers really. Pete White, who does really well at the venue, goes there all the time, was catching some better fish short. And I noticed the guys at the other end of the lake were catching carp as well, and it was just obvious they weren't there where we were. So I thought, well, it's the perfect chance to experiment a bit with this sort of maggot fishing. And slowly but surely, with using the 4x14 rig, I started catching. And I wasn't catching fast. I wasn't ever going to win the match or anything like that. But, I felt like the pay top 3 on a lake. I thought, if I can get to £100 or £90, I might stand a chance of getting some money back. So I was ticking along, and one thing I noticed was the fish I was catching were bigger than the ones I've been catching on my micro paste. Real chunky F1s. They're like the size of your hand, but they're dumpy fish. You can tell because you put them in your keep net and they make a dum sort of sound. And they're 8-10 ounce they are, and they don't look it. And I was more than happy just to keep tucking away with them. So I was just catching them. Then it sort of slowed down after a little bit. Again, I just feel like there wasn't any amount of fish there. So I went up the bank, 30 metres up my right hand side, and I caught a few, but it wasn't very good at all. In fact, just potting maggots in wasn't good at all. So I swapped to potting a bit of ground bait in, basically. Foul hooked a few fish. It wasn't right. I was foul hooking F1s. It was just weird. It was really weird. Never felt in control of my peg at all at this point. And that's how it went for sort of 3 hours. I just couldn't really get anything going. It was just an odd fish here and there. I was ticking over, don't get me wrong, but only ever small fish, never in hooked a carp. And then all of a sudden I went up that right hand edge, up the 30 metre bank, hooked a carp that gave me a right old run around, about £3. It went through all the lilies and all sorts. Absolute jet propelled this thing was. It was going up the bank and all sorts. But I got it out. I thought this might be a bit of a chance and a bit of an opening. Sometimes that happens there. You can see that fish, carp especially, you start hooking carp and that can often lead to, fish being caught. So, but it wasn't to be. The only thing I did notice, because I was struggling a bit, I made a stupid error really. Odd people catching in the edge at this point, and I started feeding the edge with about 2 and a bit hours to go, which is unlike me. I like to leave it to the last hour. But I thought I need to roll the dice a little bit here. So I rolled the dice, put a pot of ground bait in the edge, and not long after I'd hooked that carp and got him out, I noticed one tail come up down the edge. And I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. So I went in with a big old blob of paste, dropped it in, right, and I could see the fish, turn round, come straight to my paste, tip up, and I got him straight away. I thought, yeah, that's a good start. And he was a big one as well, it was £8. I thought, blooming heck, but there was no more there. It was so shallow, you could tell every time one came in. But I thought, that's good. If I can do that a few more times, I can keep picking an odd one off. But that right-hand margin just it just wasn't happening. So I gave that up. Decided to, if I'm going to do any good at all, I'm going to concentrate on maggot short and in the edge. And what happened was I started catching just an odd F1 short, not a lot, small F1 still, no proper ones. And then I caught 2 more down the left-hand edge. Again, exactly the same. See one fish come in, pop my paste near it. I wasn't being dead accurate over my bait or anything because it was obvious there weren't fish tailing up over my bait. I was potting my paste in somewhere near it, and you can actually see them turn around and go for it, which sums it up to me that they want what I've got on the hook. So that was nice to see. I got 2 more doing that, and I really thought I'd probably get to 8 or 9 fish down that edge by the end. So I just kept keeping an eye on that. And then by this point, there was about an hour and 20 to go. My maggot short really kicked off. It was nice. It was real nice fishing. I was throwing my maggots in, clunk, got one, and they were like £1.5, £2 F1s. Real nice fish. I've caught an odd one of those before, but I've not had certainly not had them queuing up like I had them on Saturday. Key was just to feed, but not be. I was earlier in the match. I was forcing it, thinking I'd catch shallow, but it wasn't that. I was throwing in a decent amount and just waiting, and that was best. I even had my first ever Shearsby Valley barbel, which was about £2, which was a nice surprise. And then I sort of got stuck a little bit because that was so good, but I knew I needed some carp, so you'd get drawn into the edge, and I only caught 1 more in the edge. I never got to me 8. I always feel like you need to catch 8 to 10 fish down the edge to do any good there. Cheers, everybody. You always need to get to 8 or 10 fish to do any good there, and I only got 4 this time. And it wasn't, I don't think my tactics were wrong or anything, because like I say, every time one came in, I pretty much caught it. They just weren't coming in. They just weren't there, which was frustrating, obviously. But the maggot short was really good, and I ended up with £87, which was really eye-opening because £90 was 4th. I was 5th in the match. There was 20 on this week. I was 5th in the match, which I was really chuffed with because I thought it was the best weight off that peg all year. But what was really interesting was my small fish net. I had £40 in there. Now, when I've been fishing my micro paste, I reckon I've been catching 150 to 200 fish for 58 to 60 pound, I reckon. Something like that anyway. They've been sort of small fish. These weren't them. I reckon I only had 60 to 70 fish for that £40. So that was interesting. Better fish, and then obviously I caught them big F1s late, which really bumped my weight up, and then my 4 edge fish. So 5th on the day, no win this week, which is disappointing. Clive Hamilton win, so well done, Clive. Won the match. He had a great weight. He had £121. A lot of edge fish again. Top 3 all caught down the edge, actually. They're all next to each other on the in the 40s, the high 40s on the Tornado Lake. But it was a good match. Tornado fished really well. You know, it's not what you've got to remember with shears, but it's not a £200 place. Not very often anyway. You do get an odd big weight, but it's 120 to 140 pound to win place normally. And sort of 80 to 100 pound is sort of your target a lot of the time to win some money. So I wasn't unhappy with my weight. Definitely learnt some stuff though for the final, which is what this trip was all about. And then I think that's probably going to be my next outing. I might try and sneak onto the Open next week just for one last little practice. If I can get some time off, I'll do that. But it's all set for the final now. I've got a bit of a plan, and I just hope that I get on some fish and get on a good peg. So thanks for watching, guys. The comments that you've all given me have blown me away. Brilliant, brilliant feedback. So thank you very much for that. Don't forget to like, give us a subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you again next time on the match recap.